Welcome into another exciting edition of Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. Jared McCain talks about his first meeting with Joel Embiid and why he thinks the Sixers superstar is misunderstood. Also, Janai Broom, Sixers rookie, forgotten man. Talk about him and more on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season around the corner. Visit FanDuel app. That's right. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now with FanDuel. By the way, tomorrow, August 26th, Futures Day with FanDuel. Keith Pompey, I'm reading things about 76ers over the weekend. This one comes by way of Sixers on Sports Illustrated, Sixers on SI, and I'm reading this by way of Sixers Sense. How about this? Jared McCain, a guy we actually spent a lot of time talking about last week as kind of another forgotten man, as opposed to the other forgotten man we're going to be talking about today in Janai Broom. But Jared McCain did an interview with Sixers on SI where, of course, he was asked about playing with Joel Embiid, and not just that, but also meeting Joel Embiid. The term he used to describe the 76ers MVP was misunderstood. Keith Pompey, Sixers beat writer extraordinaire. Is misunderstood a good adjective to describe Joel Embiid, do you think?
I mean, I don't know if that's a good adjective. I think that, you know, when you look at Joel Embiid outside, Joel Embiid does a lot of self-promotion. I think for a while he was a big-time troll on social media. So you think that this guy is a troll, right? You think that he messes with people. I also think that, you know, when he makes a big play, he stands up with the crowd and does, like, you know, the X sign, triple X, and he does all those other things. But then when you're a teammate of his, you hear that he's quiet. You know, you hear that he's a guy that, you know, doesn't say a lot, right? You know, he's a guy who's extremely intelligent, a guy who's extremely calculated on what he does and says. So I think that if you're a new guy and you're Jared McCain and you've been watching Joel Embiid while you're growing up and you're saying, this guy is extremely vocal, he's this, he's that. And then you come into the locker room and you see him quiet, keeping to himself, very introspective. Yeah, I would say that I would assume that he's misunderstood. But at the same time, I think that is more so Joel Embiid is extremely calculated and he knows what he has to do to basically in the beginning to bring exposure back to the center position. So to me, I think that Joel Embiid is smart in everything that he does and says. He says it and does it for a reason, to bring attention to what he wants to highlight.
Two things that he said. One was misunderstood. The other Jared McCain said about Joel Embiid was he's also very chill. Now, you're a rookie. You're a rookie like Jared McCain, and one of the things he talks about in the article is he always feels like people don't know how to approach him because of his TikTok following. I don't know what it's at now, 4 million maybe. But because of his TikTok following, his social media presence, a lot of people think they know him. They might think like he's some goofy guy that likes to do the dances and all that stuff. Good for him. But he says that people don't know how to approach him. And he's with Joel. He's like, with Joel, he just found him to be super chill and also misunderstood. So I thought about like how this fits. And a word that doesn't really get used a lot in the positive sense with Joel Embiid is leadership, or just being a leader in general. And I know immediately people will run to the idea of Tyrese Maxey having to call him out in a team meeting and all that stuff in that famous team meeting in Miami. But does Joel Embiid have leadership skills at all? Like, I go back to another rookie. I remember when Ben Simmons came into the league and he wasn't playing. There were the photos of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons like out on the town together, like out having dinner together and stuff like that. And Joel Embiid had said, and maybe this is part of the calculating thing that you're talking about, that he knew what it felt like to not feel like you're part of the team, even though you're on the team. Like, you're not playing because you're hurt. but you're on the team. And Ben Simmons had to sit out a year. Joel Embiid had to sit out 2 years. And he wanted to make sure that he was taking him under his wing to make him feel like he was included. Do you know if Joel Embiid still does anything like that as a leader with young players?
I mean, the thing is that, Joel, I think Joel may be a little bit more, let's say, outgoing, not outgoing, but more involved, engaged. But I feel like him and Ben Simmons, Ben Simmons and Nerlens Noel would be out on the town sometimes, but it wasn't really them who said, let's go out on the town. Kind of like they were hanging out with Michael Rubin and Meek Mill or at a certain event or something like that, right? So it was Michael Rubin, the former co-owner of the team, who would take them out and do things. I feel like that Joel, his leadership would be on the court. Give me the ball. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do stuff. I'm going to lead the team that way. I feel like more of a guy like a Tyrese Maxey, more of a Tobias Harris, a guy like that, or more of guys who basically take players under their wing. Kyle Lowry, take guys under their wing. Paul George, and say, hey, let's go out and have a meal and stuff like that. I think Joel is more of a person who, who basically leads by example on the floor. Now, because he's a guy that said, hey, look, you look at his text messages. What was it? The ESPN article said he had over 100 missed.
Yeah.
That he didn't respond to. So, to me, I feel like, Joel, his leadership, if you want to call him a leader, you'll say he leads more by example on the floor, whereas Tyrese Maxey is more of like, yo, we having this 6 a.m. workout. Y'all got to come. Hey, look, we're going to hang out. We're going to do this, things like that. Because the problem is when we talk about leadership off the floor and doing stuff, and you did bring it up, it's hard to call someone like a leader that way when you have a part of the meeting is, hey, bro, you got to show up on time for everything. You can't be late for everything. You know what I mean? Now, who knows?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like his leadership quality was more like on the floor and let's get work done. And I'm a bust this guy's tail and we're going to win the game.
Yeah. One of the things McCain went on to talk about in the article is, sometimes it is vocal, the leadership. This is a quote from Jared McCain on Joel Embiid. He says, sometimes it's vocal. Sometimes it's just by his actions. And you can tell when he walks into the gym, the certain energy shifts in the gym. But then also went on to talk about how because he's the, proven, the MVP on the team, that is, and one-time MVP of the NBA, he's the guy that a lot of people try to impress, especially as a younger player. You want to almost show Joel Embiid that you're the guy that he can count on when you're on the court together. Of
course, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because, like at the end of the day, when that double team comes, you want to be the guy that Joel Embiid's going to swing the ball to or get the ball to. And I will say that, as through the years, as Joel got older, he has been more vocal on the court. Like, he gets in teammate. I'm not saying get in their faces, but he's like directing traffic, telling them what to do. They're walking back during a timeout. He's like explaining, where they just made a mistake at. He's encouraging people. From that aspect, I don't think that Tyrese Maxey would be the player he is if it wasn't for Joel Embiid encouraging him. Like, no, you need to shoot the ball. You need to do this. You need to do that. So I will agree with that. Because as long as Joel Embiid is here, he is the only MVP on this team, right? He is the only person who scored 70 points on this team, right? So with that being said, he is the guy that you need to impress because at the end of the day, you want to be on Joel Embiid's good side when it comes down to playing basketball. You want to be a guy that he trusts because, he does still have a lot of influence on what happens.
You referenced talking to the players, going back to the huddle or going back to the sidelines, all that stuff. I remember the incident with Kelly Oubre last year on the bench where he was yelling at Kelly Oubre because he didn't get back on defense. And I forget who was against. It's not jumping to mind, but
Detroit.
It was Detroit. Thank you. And they go back to the huddle, or they go back to the sidelines of their bench, and he's just like, "You got to get back on that, man. That was on you. You just had your head down. You were lollygagging back the other way, whatever." That's what it looked like the conversation was. And Kelly Oubre didn't like that too much, but it certainly put a spring back into Kelly Oubre a little bit. You don't see a lot of that from Joel Embiid, but you do see it in little spurts. And I guess it's got to be a guy really picking his spots as to when to address an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's weird because when you watch, I don't know if you watched the Big Three or I watched the Big Three. I think it was yesterday or Sunday or Saturday. Might have been yesterday, Sunday. And I watched the championship, and you see in the huddle, these dudes are going at it. And, I think in the NBA arena, we're so far away from it. The only people who actually see it is the fans who have seats close by or if the TV spans. So I think what happened in that huddle isn't as uncommon as we think. I just think that we just don't pay attention to it. So yeah, that was a sign of leadership. And I think, both guys, the thing is they get into it in the heat of the moment and then next thing you know, it's over with. But yes, that's definitely a sign of leadership. I just feel like it happens more often than we think, just because, there's 12 guys in the huddle or 15 guys standing over it. You hear the music blaring, everybody's paying attention to other things. But I do think that, that's probably not the first time Joel Embiid got in the teammate's face saying you need to hustle, you need to bust your tail. And then not the first time a teammate can't bark back at him.
Right. Yeah. I'm just thinking, you have to overcome the distraction of like, who wants a t-shirt? Like that guy, you know what I mean? Like you gotta,
exactly, yeah.
And then people losing their minds for the t-shirt, the ill-fitting t-shirt. But anyway, it is.
When you watching this, you can't wear it anymore.
Exactly, it falls apart. Yeah. No, that is it. Also, we depend a lot on the cameras. To actually to catch up on that. Now, why is all this relevant? Well, it's not just because it's Joel Embiid. It's because he is the man in Philadelphia. He is still the man in Philadelphia. Now, I know we don't know how long he's going to be available. We don't know how many games he's going to play in, anything like that. However, he is still the culture setter here in Philadelphia. And Jared McCain's coming in here with, a year as a pro under his belt, 23 games as a pro under his belt, a hell of a 23-game run, I might add. The Sixers have obviously already drafted him. They already signed Tyrese Maxey to a long-term extension, and now they have drafted VJ Edgecombe. We talked a lot last week and really throughout since the draft that the Sixers are trying to inject this new life into this team, this new culture into this team. And if the guy that is here right now that is still the man isn't a welcoming presence or someone that is willing to be a leader, someone to call out someone to also encourage someone else, like you mentioned with Tyrese Maxey, then this whole, for lack of a better term, this whole process is going to take a little bit longer than any of us would like.
Yeah, but see, what I think the biggest thing for Joel though is to do the things that Maxey said do, right? Like, there becomes a time where like everyone can't be a vocal leader. Like they just can't. Like some people are just blessed with it. Some people you come across with it and you say it and it may come across as fake. Like when we look at the 76ers, you look at Kyle Lowry, right? And I know some people are saying, look, Keith, he's 39, whatever. But he's a guy that's had a reputation everywhere he's been. He's been a vocal leader. He was all-star, but he wasn't always the best player. But he was the leader of the locker room, right? You look at Tyrese Maxey. I mean, he's turned out to be the leader of the locker room. I think the leadership quality that I would like to see more so out of Joel Embiid, more so from him to being a rah-rah guy and saying stuff, I would like for him to come in tip-top shape, show that. I would like for him to be lead by example, to be the first one in the gym, the last one to leave, right? I would love for him to, like, whenever they have team meetings, which goes to being the first one and the last one to leave, first one to arrive and last one to leave, is to be on time. To me, that will go a long way, because you got to understand something. Like, the best player typically isn't always the vocal leader. Look at Clyde Drexler, for instance. They said Clyde Drexler, it was different from Michael Jordan, where Michael Jordan was beating up teammates in practice, right? That wasn't Clyde in them, right? But at the same time, you see all these guys. You see Steph Curry, you see Kevin Durant, you see, just name all these dudes. They're the hardest worker in the gym, all of them. Like, look at Luka Doncic. He got all this money. The knock on him was he's out of shape, he's fat, he's lazy, yada, yada. He goes out and loses all that weight. And now, things like that. So for me, I would love to see Joel Embiid come back in tip-top shape, the best shape of his life. I would love for Joel Embiid to be on time and be the hardest worker out there. To me, that will go a long way in regards to being a leader to VJ Edgecombe, being a leader to Jared McCain, being a leader to Janai Broom. Those are the type of things I feel like they need to see.
Love it. All right, when we come back, Keith, I want to talk about Janai Broom. We highlighted Jared McCain last week as sort of a forgotten man. Well, today, the forgotten man is Janai Broom, Sixers rookie, big man they took out of Auburn. Talk about him and more when we return. This is Locked On 76ers on Locked On Sixers YouTube channel. Let me tell you about FanDuel. How incredible is FanDuel? Well, today's Monday, the 25th. Tomorrow is August 26th. And August 26th is FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment tomorrow, Tuesday, August 26th, 24 hours to pick your winners. Take a flyer maybe in the MVP race, maybe who wins the division. Maybe you're talking about Jalen Hurts. Maybe you're talking about Saquon Barkley as your MVP, and obviously the Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC East. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. And I also got to tell you guys about this listener survey and viewer survey, courtesy of Locked On Sports. We have an important request for Locked On. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and our audience and make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like and what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising as well. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. That's lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. How about that? Again, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out here at Locked On Sports. And we do hope you do participate in that survey. Keith, Janai Broom. We've done our starting lineups, with Grimes, without Grimes, and all that stuff. We've talked about that. We've talked about rotations and all that. And one guy that I will say impressed me in Summer League, not that he's going to be an all-star or anything like that, maybe even not a guy to threaten to get into the starting five, but Janai Broom, he was a little bit better than I expected to be, especially in his facilitating ability as a big man. Janai Brown, forgotten man today. Janai Broom, excuse me. So forgotten, I forgot his last name. Janai Broom coming in here. What are you making of him, and what we could expect in his rookie year?
It's weird because, just like you, he sort of impressed me. He performed a whole lot better than I expected because, coming into after the draft there, when he was drafted in the second round, you're like, whoa, there were some other guys who were way more athletic, other guys who had a bigger upside than him, who you felt like the 76ers should have taken in that spot, right? Janai Broom is 23 years old. He was a fifth-year senior. the whole nine. He doesn't really jump high at all. He was kind of like was embarrassing at the combine. It was like he became a meme. But when you look at his stats, and you talked about it, 11.6 points per game in the summer league, 7.4 rebounds, 1.3 steals, 0.9 blocks across 7 games. But the thing that really impressed me the most was his 3-point shooting. He shot 38.7%, and his best game came against the Dallas Mavericks when he had 22 points and 13 rebounds, right? So he really impressed me. The thing is, when you look at it, you can say that, what are you going to ask him to do? You're going to ask him to knock down shots. You're going to want him to rebound. Is there a tough task ahead of him, or like, do you have other guys ahead of him that you feel like may be able better utilize? Yes, there is. But I do think that when we say that a guy who can just come in and grab rebounds and hit shots, if he can do that, I think that there's opportunities for him to play on the floor. There is. Now, initially you look at him and you say, okay, well, he'll be in the G League and he'll do some other things. But that shooting and that basketball IQ and the toughness that he has, we're talking about a guy to come in not to be a star, but a guy to come in and fill a spot, a role. And when we look at it, he's a legit 6'10", a legit 240, 235, 240. Whereas, so at that height, at that 6'10", 240, he's the third tallest guy on the team. You got Embiid at 7'2". You have Drummond at 6'11", and then you have him, and he's playing the power forward spot. So to me, I think that, is he going to be a consistent rotation player? Is he going to have to work to become a rotation player? Yes. But I do think that because of the things that he does, that could lead to him to, especially early on, while Embiid and Paul George may not be available, that could lead to him to get some valuable playing time.
I'll say the term lumbering still jumps to mind, though, when I think about Janai Broom. And what I knew about him at Auburn and watching him a little bit at Auburn as well, I knew that was going to be a thing at the NBA level. But obviously everyone says when you go up to that next level, no matter what the sport, everything's faster. He looked like he was at the same pace, unfortunately. But what I did notice, again, to go back to his facilitating, the shooting certainly jumped out at me. The scoring jumped out to me as well. But it was almost like what he couldn't do with his feet, he was able to do with some smart heads-up passing and setting up some other players as well. That impressed me as well.
Yeah, and the thing that you're all right, there is some lumbering things, but what we're talking about is when Janai Broom was first drafted, and you were like, oh my God, they drafted who? You know what I mean? That was like what people nationally were saying. Like, there were some people who got caught up because he was a consensus All-American, SEC Player of the Year, Big Man of the Year. He led his team to the Final Four, the whole nine, right? But then there were other people that were looking at it like, is his body and is his speed, lack of athleticism, is that for today's NBA game? Is he going to be left behind? Is he going to struggle? But when you look at the situation, and when we're saying, okay, he's not going to be a consistent rotation player, he may not even be a rotation player like in the depth chart right now. But the two things that you need from him is shot making and rebounding. He could have an opportunity to play. Right now, we're not saying he's going to play a plethora of minutes, but he could still get in and get out there and play. And the thing is, yes, he was slow, but I was impressed. And not only, like, the two things that impressed me the most was his competitiveness, right? And his shot making. And those were two things that, he was competitive, but his shot making, I was told that he couldn't shoot, but he shot 38.7%. Now, again, they're going to be quicker guys running after him. He's not going to have enough time. But at the same time, what he did was extremely impressive to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Janai Broom, after watching him in Summer League, I'm in on Janai Broom. Now, last thing I want to ask you about him, G League, NBA roster, where do you think he spends the majority of his time?
That's a great question. I think that I think a lot of that will ultimately depend on who's healthy and who's available. But I do see him being with the team more so than the NBA team, more so than people think. I think there may be some stretches where it's like there may be a couple of times where he's not getting any playing time, and they need him to go down there and get a run because they need him to to play, get some practice, get some reps in, kind of sort of like what they did with Justin Edwards. A little bit with Adembona, so to speak, right? But for the most part, I do see him just because when we look at it, I mean, you look at it. So they have Don Barlow, they have they have Trendon Wofford, and they have Janai Broom as the only 3 power forwards on the team. Now, traditional power forwards. Now, right. You can go small with other things. But I feel like the best way for him to get better is going up against better competition, right? Like iron sharpens iron. If he goes down to the G League, is that going to make him better? Like the Sixers need him to get faster. They need him to do stuff. I mean, what is he going to do? Go down there and get 30 points and 18 rebounds, and we're all going to say, yeah, he's the man. No, he needs to go up there and play against people. He needs to get his butt whipped a little bit, as they say, and learn from that.
Yeah, go up and go play against men. That's what.
Yeah, play against men. Take it on the chin strap a couple times.
Right, not a lot of college guys. Yeah. I'm with you. All right, when we come back, we got a whole weekend. We need to know whether or not Quinton Grimes signed or not. And Keith, I'm going to ask you that question when we return. So get your reading material ready. Back after this on Locked On 76ers. Folks, let me tell you about Open Phone. Hopefully the Sixers got an open phone here when it comes to Quinton Grimes and his agent, that's for sure. But when you talk about Open Phone, you talk about the way to run a business. Because let's face it, a missed call in a business is a missed opportunity. It's money left on the table. Think about your own. You had an emergency, maybe for a plumber, maybe another kind of service. Did you call one person and then just stop and wait for them to call back as a pipe was gushing? No, you didn't. You made other calls. You kept making calls until somebody answered the phone. An Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and text from a single app. The shared inbox feature is also a game changer, by the way. Your team can jump on a conversation instantly without missing a beat. And their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss out on a customer. Open Phone is offering our listeners and our viewers 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers from another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Keith Puppet. Ooh, Hoop Immortals. That looks like a good cover right there. Hey, Keith, did Quinton Grimes get signed yet?
Quinton who? I'm sitting here reading about the 1967 76ers, the greatest team ever. The greatest team in that. Well, they say this was the greatest team in 76ers history. The 1967 team, led by Billy Cunningham, Hal Greer, and Wilt Chamberlain.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they beat the Boston Celtics, but nobody. It's funny, they beat the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, and more people talk about that than the team who they beat to win the championship. So
you know that's funny. That's funny.
It's crazy, right?
You know that's yeah. You know what were you gonna say about the Celtics?
Because I think the Celtics had like a string. That's the first time they had like a string of I don't know, a bunch of consecutive championships, and this team won it.
That broke the trend?
Yeah, they broke the trend, yeah. So more people talk about that than anything. But Maggie Gukas was on that team, and Billy C. It was a great team, one of the best of all time.
Do you know what that 1967 team has in common with the 2026 Philadelphia 76ers?
What?
Neither team has signed Quinton Grimes yet.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know
that's
that?
True. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Neither.
Like how I tied that in? That's called a segue.
Yeah, that's a segue. Yeah, I mean, we keep talking about it. I know we bring it up every day. We have to because, it's one of those things. But, from the start, I always felt like Jonathan Kuminga was going to be the first shoe to drop.
Yep.
And then from there, it was going to be Josh Giddey. And then it was going to be Quinton Grimes. But here's the question I have for you. So even though we're talking about Quinton Grimes, right? But now if you're the 76ers and you see that Malik Beasley, before he was supposed to get paid with the Detroit Pistons. And then they thought like maybe gambling on games and all this stuff. So he didn't sign. There's not a lot of options out there for him. Do you swing for the fence with him with a minimum for a 1-year deal? Do you try to bring him in for a training camp and say to someone, okay, fellas, one of y'all got to try out for a spot. We're going to go with him. Now, the how much money do they have left for that?
Right.
But, my thing is, what do you do? Because he's probably a better shooter than Quinton Grimes. What do you do?
Just look at that. He's 28 years old. 1-year deal.
I mean, Davis can't be choosy right about now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He could go to Brooklyn and get paid, but is he going to make a lot of money?
Wow. That's a really interesting question. I like that curveball.
I mean, Malik Beasley can start at the 2 guard for you. Or let's face it.
Yeah.
He came off the bench in Detroit and was like what?
Mm-hmm.
A 6-man candidate,
Yeah.
He has baggage though.
I'll put it to you like this. I'd rather do a 1-year deal with Malik Beasley than Quinton Grimes for this upcoming season. I know the Sixers are locked in on Grimes, but I think if you're looking to have the best possible roster this year, I think Beasley helps you out more. And a lot of that does come down to 41% shooting. And Quinton Grimes was great last year. You're talking about the last couple of years here, handful of years, around 41% with Malik Beasley. The versatility at the guard spot as well. And let's face it, if Jared McCain takes a huge step forward, if VJ Edgecombe takes a huge step forward, you're talking about somebody that can be another spark plug off the bench for you in Beasley. Yeah. So, I might be more inclined to go with Beasley. I did see that last week with Shams, by the way, Shams Charania, that he wasn't going to be, what was it? He's not being charged or he's not being suspended or whatever it was. Basically, the outcome was good is what I remember. And then I just remember thinking again about gambling and sports and all that and how that is the big threat to everything with gambling so readily available. But once he was cleared, that's a really interesting thing. Would it be around the 8.7? Would it be around?
I don't know. I don't know with him. Just because, see, the thing is, the Sixers, I guess they could probably give him a mid-level exception. I guess they could give him the exception that they were going to give Yabusele, but at the same time, even if you did sign Quinton Grimes, are you going to waive somebody? Because you got to realize are you going to waive somebody on the team and then try to get this guy? How are you going to do it? They don't really have a lot of wiggle room, but at the same time, it's a guy who was in line to make 3 years or whatever, $40 million, who now is available. For a lot of teams, He made
$6 million last year. Yeah, he made $6 million last
million last year. And then, but when you look at it, like you said, he shot 41.6% last year. He shot 41.3% the season before that. So it's not like you're saying, it was a fluky year. You know what I mean? He was
Right.
just in a great situation. We're talking about he did that with the Milwaukee Bucks, and then he did that with the Detroit Pistons. So, you know, he is who his statistics say he is.
Yeah. And started for Milwaukee, 77 of 79 games he played in. How about that? You've piqued my interest. We might have to change this to Beasley watch. I don't know. I'll maybe less reading material for that. Keith Pompey, pleasure as always, my friend. Look forward to doing this again with you tomorrow. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to Locked On 76ers. That's like and subscribe to Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta will be back with you guys tomorrow to break it down even further. And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day. So make sure you guys are checking it all out, all things courtesy of Locked On Sports. As for your next listen, make sure you guys check out Locked On NBA Podcast, where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Farzetta. Catch you guys tomorrow.